Welcome to the Awesemo MMA Live Before Lock show as we get you ready for today's UFC Vegas number 37. Of course, we did lose one fight. We'll talk about that as we go on throughout the show. Of course, we are here to answer your questions over the next hour leading up to UFC Vegas number 37. Of course, we are sponsored by Prize Picks. I'll tell you about a little bit about them later on in the show. We're also brought to you by our new sports betting podcast, Betting You, is Ben and Matt every Wednesday, talk all things college football betting. So you got to check out those shows. New episodes every Wednesday. You get on wherever you get your podcast, whether it's Apple Podcasts. If you're like me, that's where I get my podcast. Or maybe if you're a Spotify person or wherever you get your podcast, be sure to check out our brand new podcast, Betting You. Of course, as always, I am joined by the fighter, Pete Rogers Jr. Pete, we do the show on Thursday, and then literally not that far after, we learn that the Nicholas Mata and Cameron Van Camp fight is off. Appears that it's on the Cameron Van Camp side of an injury, forced him out of that matchup. But, really, I think that even though Mata was somebody that I was looking at because of we talked about the value that was there in terms of the salary, because obviously he was initially supposed to take on Jim Miller, it really doesn't change kind of the way I'm developing my lineups today.
Yeah. Told you we're going to lose a fight. Like that was a guarantee. Happy that we didn't lose more. But I still feel like there's a ton of value on this slate to get through. I still feel like lineup construction is relatively easy. I think in general, what really sticks out to me is kind of like a stars and scrubs approach. If we're being honest, I like a lot of top end options. I do feel like there are some low end options that can come through for us. The middle range is something that usually I like to target because it's, kind of glossed over week to week. But I do think that this week we look at some fighters in that range. And I think that the likelihood of them going the distance is a little higher than other fights. So we'll get into it. I'm interested to see what questions our listeners have. And it's good to be here on a Saturday with, some, I'll say, early afternoon fights.
Of course, Punisher had a little long night last night. Let's just say that. It was a little long night for me. A little rough this morning. Let's just say a little rough, Pete, this morning. A little rough.
I thought something was different with your voice. I'm like, man, I don't know what's going on. Either he's screaming, I don't know, maybe playing a little too much Rock Band Guitar Hero, or I don't know what's going on. But clearly it's just a long night partying.
Guitar Hero, and God knows how many years.
Damn, I used to love it.
Oh yeah. Back in the day. Oh yeah. I love that stuff, man. I had a buddy, Ben, you didn't want to play against him. He would just kill you.
Yeah. I was pretty nice. I gotta be honest.
But yeah, it was a long night, but good night. Actually, doing a little, birthday dinner with the family tonight, going to a nice little Italian spot to get some good food tonight. So yeah, man, it's
that is right. I didn't even realize it. My days kind of blend together. Happy birthday, Jason, to the best host and the best co-host that I could have. And we all appreciate you here, all the work you do for MMA, MMA reporting, everything NASCAR. So, if you guys appreciate what Jason does, definitely throw a happy birthday in chat.
Yeah, I will be here for the next 2 hours. As right after we get done, it'll be NASCAR. As myself and Phil gets you ready for tonight's NASCAR slate. Of course, as Pete said, give us a little thumbs up. Give me a little birthday present, a thumbs up. Helps my ego out a lot. Of course, if you're not subscribed, also you got to do that as well. Hit that subscribe, hit that notification bell, and do want to let you know that we got some free premium data and tools over at Awesemo.com. If you're not an Awesemo Plus member and you want to get about a peek at what's behind the paywall, NFL main slate ownership projections for week 2, MLB main slate ownership projections, and MMA fighter rankings are all up there. Free content over at Awesemo.com. So you got to check it out as you're developing your lines, whether we're talking about MMA, NFL, MLB, whatever it may be. Of course, we are here to take your questions. And let me start off here with CS. I appreciate you in the super chat. He says, I'm playing heavy today, lots to build. Please answer even ever when you can, but will it get out the way right away? Top 2 underdog, low salary fighters who have the best chance to break the slate. We were actually kind of talking about this before the show. I think you got to look at someone like a Carlston Harris as somebody at 7,300. I think Brandon Jenkins coming in on couple of days notice, I think, is another one that you have to pay attention to there. You mentioned kind of about Antonio Arroyo a little bit on the strategy show there on Thursday. You talked about Hannah Goldie, Gustavo Lopez. So there's a lot of under 8,000 options out there.
Yeah, I will say that there are a ton of 7,000 options that I think are going to be popular, but I do like to look at some of these 6K options because I feel like nobody's going to target them. And if nobody's going to target them, and I think that they have a path, and it's always possible for fighters to pull off upsets. That's why this is the most exciting sport out there. JP Buys is a no for me. Brennan Jenkins, he's in the realm of possibility of pulling this off, but I do think that it's a pretty evenly matched fight, and I think that that goes the distance, but he could definitely pull it off. Christos Giagos, don't want any part of him, to be honest. Sarah Alpar and Antonio Hoyo are actually two fighters that I did sprinkle in a little bit, and my reasoning behind that: Sarah Alpar is a pretty strong wrestler. Her striking's kind of elementary, but she's going up against a highly touted prospect in Blanchfield who should win the fight. Let's be real. She should win the fight, and she's set up to win the fight. I mean, this is let's get you in the UFC and, have a nice debut. But if Sarah Alpar is able to, pin Jessica Rose Clark against the cage and get some control time and win some moments, I definitely feel like she can win some moments here against Blanchfield. I think that she's going to be the stronger athlete in some time. She needs to win 2 rounds, right? She could definitely pull off a decision. And a decision at 6,800 does allow you tons of flexibility to get a lot of these top end options that I think are going to score massively. So I sprinkled her in, and my reason behind, getting some Antonio Hoyo exposures is not really anything about his skill set. So, specifically, it's more about fading Buckley's chin, right? Like Buckley in his losses has been knocked out. And, how is he going to return from this? We understand that he likes to get into a firefight. Antonio Hoyo is a massive guy with questionable takedown defense. But in the UFC, Joaquin Buckley has shown that he doesn't really like to go to that well. He likes to stand and trade. And if he gets caught in an exchange, I do think that a guy who can kick so dynamically and can hit so hard, I think Antonio Hoyo can definitely break the slate at 6,900. So those are my 6K options that I sprinkled. Sarah Alpar, Antonio Hoyo, Brandon Jenkins.
And one of the things that I mentioned to Pete in text earlier this week was about a lineup to putting Montel Jackson and Sarukian together. Now we're talking about a 9,600 fighter and a 9,500 fighter. The way to accomplish that was Hannah Goldie, Carlson Harris, Gustavo Lopez, and Rongju. So it is possible if you want to, pay up that well. And I think this is one of those weeks, and, stars and scrubs, we talk about when we're talking about MMA or any other DFS sport, it is a thought process to put out there. So, that is something to think about there in terms of it. Ryan says, who's a GPP lock of the day to go over 110 points? I know you hate that L word. That L word is not exactly in your vocabulary, but to me, one of my takeaways from the weigh-ins yesterday, Pete, is I thought Ian Cutelaba looked a little slimmed down, but not as big as we've seen him in the past.
Yeah, he's always going to look amazing on the scale, and I feel like he has looked larger. I'm sure that if he goes back and he looks at his losses, what has gone wrong? Well, his cardio has abandoned him at times, so he needs to lean out a little bit, and I did think that he made some changes to his camp. We'll have to see how that plays out in the octagon, but he is fighting a fighter who, trains at elevation. So I think he really noticed he needs to, up the cardio for this camp. I think a fighter that can definitely get you north of 100 points is Montel Jackson. I really like Montel Jackson today. I think he goes in there and makes quick work JP Buys. I just hope it's not too quick, because if it's too quick, then he's not going to score enough. I want him to kind of, rack up some points and then get a later first round finish, or, a second round finish with some accumulating stats.
Let's see here. We got Andrew saying he loves Montel Jackson in the MVP spot on FanDuel, but he is so highly owned, leaning towards Cutelaba. Look, I think that when you're talking about the MVP spot, to me, I'm always looking for, okay, I'm going to look at the main event because it's a 5-round fight, first off. The other thought is, who can go out there and win quickly? Who can go out there and get that first round bonus in that MVP spot? And I think Ian Cutelaba is someone to look at there. We did see Devin Clark survived that flurry from Alonzo Minifield. And I think when we're talking about, those powerful strikers in this division, you think of Minifield, you think of Cutelaba, wild man. I think that's one way to put it there. And I said this on the strategy show. If I'm Devin Clark, I'm trying to get this fight up against the fence. I'm trying to make this a grappling matchup. You do not want to make this a kickboxing matchup. If this is a fight at range, you love Ian Cutelaba in that situation. Arman Sarukian could be an interesting MVP spot as well. If the fight goes longer, can accumulate takedowns, maybe gets a submission, late on. I do like that prop of him to win inside the distance, which I want to say is plus 150. I thought that was a pretty interesting prop if whether he does it by submission or by TKO. Tony Gravely, I think, is the other one. When we're talking about MVP, it's got to be interesting because he has the potential to rack up a ton of takedowns.
Yeah, I don't disagree with anything you say. I think the Sarukian inside the distance is something that should be sprinkled if you're playing, if you're betting. And I also think that it's interesting because he has such a high price point that he could become a little lower owned than he should be. We talk about accumulating stats. I think he's going to be able to accumulate tons and get Giagos out of there. So we could be looking at a massive, massive total. I understand the concern about some of these fighters, right? And that's the whole point of MMA DFS. You have to understand their path and, how lineup construction is volatile sometimes, right? So I would say like 6K options or 6K options for a reason, typically. Like we know what we're getting, right? So like be very, very careful. Like I'm not saying go in there and be super, super aggressive. The odds are stacked against them. They're in very difficult spots, but you have to look at spots where fighters can make adjustments and can capitalize on opportunities. So I do prefer 7K options over 6K options. And I do think that, a fighter like Hannah Goldie is somebody who's interesting to me. I think that she can, if she does the correct game plan, like if she looks at that round 3 of her previous performance against Belbita, says, you know what, when I got on top, I was a force. I could get, Whitmire out of there relatively easy. I don't think that Whitmire's all that good, to be honest. And I do like the fact that Hannah Goldie's been training with Jillian Robertson, a fighter that's pretty familiar with Emily Whitmire.
Dylan goes, on FanDuel, who do you like for a GPP, Arroyo or Manis? The one thing I would say I like about the Manis side of that equation is Gravely's going to be going for takedowns. That is who Tony Gravely is. So when we're talking about the FanDuel side of the equation, it becomes that thought process of he could rack up some points due to defending takedowns.
Yeah, agreed. I think that on FanDuel, Manis does make a lot of sense. And to this point, he's been extremely lucky in UFC, right? Like he's been able to capitalize on opponents, gassing themselves out. You thought, look at Luke Sanders, and Tony Gravely can definitely do the same thing because his cardio was a little questionable in his previous performance against Anthony Burchak, where I'm like, man, he's exhausting himself because he just pushes such a high pace. And it comes down to, how does Manis respond to that? If he's able to get up or threaten with submissions, does this fight get a little interesting? Can he sneak away a decision win? I definitely think that that's in play. And Manis is probably a safer underdog to target than Antonio Hoyo. Antonio Hoyo is definitely a dart throw, but I'm just saying I sprinkled him in because I think that he can get the knockout over Joaquin Buckley.
Smith or Cutelaba in a DraftKings GPP. DraftKings scoring favors Cutelaba.
Yeah.
But the only thing I would say about that, I think the ceiling is higher for Cutelaba because of the finishing ability quickly. The one concern I think I would have for Anthony Smith is, and you talk about this, it seems like every week when we're talking about these 5-round fights, the last thing you want is a stoppage in the 3rd round.
Yeah,
and I think that's potentially where it could come.
I think so too, right? Like if we look at Anthony Smith and we see a 4th round sub over Alexander Gustafsson, scored 63 points. A 3rd round sub over Volkan Ozdemir, 79 points. Like I feel like he's going to have to weather the early storm from Ryan Spann, and that's nothing that everybody out there listening right now doesn't know. I think that Ryan Spann's extremely dangerous within 10 minutes. After that, he definitely falls off a cliff. I think that I would much rather target in GPPs, Cutelaba, who's going to go out there, hopefully with a refined gas tank in a matchup where, Devin Clark doesn't like to get hit and Devin Clark gets finished when he loses. So for me, I think that Cutelaba at 9,000 is priced accordingly. Hopefully he's able to, stay off of his back, maybe implement some takedowns of his own. I don't really foresee that happening because Devin Clark's such a strong wrestler, but Cutelaba's aggressiveness is what's really tilting me in his favor.
Next up, who scores the highest in a loss in our opinion?
Highest in a loss? That's really hard to say. There's a lot of fights on this card, right? So I think that Devin Clark could be the guy, right? Like, because he gets a ton of takedowns, and we want to look at fighters that can get a ton of takedowns. Who else can score a ton in a loss? I'd probably say that. Possibly Sarah Alpar because of takedowns, and I think that she can have some success in moments. But I'll have to say Devin Clark.
The other one I was going to throw out there, I wanted to look at his stats from his fight against Casey Kenny, would be Alatang.
I'm not an Alatang guy, man. I am not an Alatang guy. But okay, sell me, because I look at Alatang and I just think he's all right.
He hasn't done the volume where in his wins, what has been key to him has been getting a takedown. So I think we're talking about, and the problem is when you're talking about a 14 fight card.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't want to be already thinking about, okay, who's going to score the most in a loss when I'm trying to, find 6 winners out of 14 fights.
Yeah. I don't think that a losing fighter is going to be in the optimal lineup, if you want me to be honest. I think that, just thinking about that is somewhat more of a cash play where you want to just be safe. In GPPs, you're going to need 6 winners.
Oh, no question. You definitely have to get that there. Let's see here. Of course, if you have any questions, someone's saying Pennington first round submission. I don't know, but I've noticed it seems like money's coming in on Panny on the betting side of that one.
On Panny Kianzad?
Yeah.
I had some parlays, right? And then I was about to just put Pennington in there. And then I sat there and I thought to myself, I'm like, man, I feel like this is a tricky fight where a lot of people are kind of glossing over Panny Kianzad, who has awesome offensive, production. As long as she's not, unable to keep herself against the cage, I think she'll have some success in there against Raquel Pennington. And I went back and I watched Raquel Pennington's previous fight, and usually she has, a ton of success holding her opponent against the cage, and her opponents really can't move that much. But I think it was Marion Renault was her previous opponent, and she was able to get off the cage and put her against the fence. So I'm like, maybe this is a tricky fight. So I kind of avoided her for my parlays just to be safe.
Of course, when you want to get access to all the great tools and content we have over at Awesemo.com, you got to sign up for Awesemo Pass. And of course, if you're a new user of Also Plus Platinum, you got to take advantage of the promo we have going on during this show. All you got to do is use the promo code MMA Live Before Lock, all caps, one word. That's MMA Live Before Lock for 25% off your first week of Also Plus Platinum. But if you're just looking for a Awesemo Plus MMA pass, you can get a weekly package for only $8.95. Stop guessing, start winning. Join Awesemo today. Of course, you use those ownership, those projections are big for me, and that top fighter tool, I'm telling you, that is the tool to look at. That really helps you develop those lines. Find out where you can find a little leverage in terms of that. So be sure to take advantage of that promo we got going on. MMA Live Before Lock there. Be sure to take advantage of that one. Next one says, hey, Pete, will the main event be optimal?
I don't think so. I treated it like it's not going to be, but I definitely have some exposure to it. I just feel like, man, it's got to go perfect for Anthony Smith at that price point. If Ryan Spann goes out there and just makes quick work of Anthony Smith, yeah, he's optimal. But I think that Anthony Smith is a proven vet that he can last a little bit.
On DraftKings, who are the top 2 must-have 9,000 fighters?
Sarukian and Montel Jackson.
Oh, geez, just take the top 2 guys.
Well, I mean, it's true though, right? Like that's how I
agree with you, but I think Tony Bradley has probably the potential to score the highest because of those takedowns. But we've seen when he gets these takedowns, he's a guy that's scoring 130 plus points.
I agree. And the only worry is because of his cardio and how Manus is so lucky and dangerous, and he's tough as hell. So I'm like, I think it's going to go the distance, and Gravely probably is in the 90 range, which is still solid. But I feel like there are some other 9,000 options that absolutely smash.
Next up, Joshua asking, is Jenkins live? Yeah. I think he is. I mean, you talk about how many times have we seen these fighters, especially Vegas trained fighters that step up on 3-4 days notice. They come in as massive underdogs and they shock us all.
Yeah. it's the smartest thing ever, right? Like, Trevin Jones, go out to Vegas, just be there and be prepared. And hopefully you get a phone call. I mean, I got to rack up some wins, and I think I'm going to go move to Vegas. I think that's what the hell we're going to do. It's just, be there in the gym. And, yeah, I think that anybody in Vegas is definitely taking advantage of the COVID era.
Yeah, I was talking to a Canadian fighter yesterday, Shane Campbell, who was in the UFC. His time in the UFC ended in 2016. He was telling me that back in July, he went to Vegas for a couple of weeks. And his whole mentality, the whole reason he went there was if someone fell off during fight week, that he was in town. And because his mentality is like, hey, I'm a completely different fighter now than I was in 2016. I've been on a great run. And we saw it work out for Trevin Jones, last year at this point, I guess it was, maybe earlier this year, where, he lives in Guam, trains in Guam. He said, you know what, I'm going to go to Vegas. And he's there. All of a sudden, opportunity comes up and he gets into the UFC. I mean, this is, that's the one thing about where, and I think a lot of fighters have realized this, is that when you're in Vegas, those are going to be the fighters that they're going to turn to first for these short notice fights, because then all of a sudden it's not trying to get someone on a plane and into Vegas and, get the licensing, because for the most part, all those fighters in Vegas probably already have a license with the Nevada State Athletic Commission. So it's going to help out a lot as well. There's a lot of fighters who are doing that, of moving to Vegas. I mean, it was a time, Pete, where not a lot of people want to train in Vegas. They kind of went through that dull period, but, really, I think with the PI, Extreme Couture has been on the rise, Syndicate on the rise. There's a 10th Planet Gym out there as well. Everyone's going to Vegas now.
Hell yeah. I think Extreme Couture is one of the powerhouse gyms right now. So I can't blame them.
Thoughts on fading the main event in a single entry?
Yeah, I'm with it.
Yeah, I'm with you there on that one. Hunter says Cutelaba can win a decision. Just saying, he looks like he wants to have the second round cardio. I mean, look, the thing about Cutelaba has really been that gas tank.
Yeah.
And we talked about the strategy. I want to say it was like plus 600 for him to win by decision, maybe.
I tell you, I think that's interesting. Devin Clark's tough. Devin Clark's been hit with a lot of shots, but in his losses, he has quit and he has, been taken out of there. So Cutelaba is just so mean. He's a mean fighter, and that's why I think that he's a smash play for DraftKings. But it's a sprinkle for betting. Go, via decision.
Top 2 must roster fights. Now, we talked about this on Thursday on the strategy show, and a lot of it was based on salary. We talked about Zhu and Jenkins just because of what the salaries were for those one. We talk about Mod and Van Camp, but obviously that fight's not on here anymore. Outside of that, maybe Buckley Arroyo is like that fight you really got to be looking at.
Now I'm going to say it's the Cutelaba Devin Clark fight. I think that if Devin Clark, the Arroyo one's a good one as well. I just think that Devin Clark's either going to take him and put him on his back, multiple times, or Cutelaba is just going to be able to stuff that and punish him. That screams GPP for me, and I think that Devin Clark's going to be an easy pick for people down in that 7K range. But Antonio Hoyo is going to be a guy that I don't think many people want to get to, and I can't blame him. We already talked about it. Joaquin Buckley's a highlight machine. I have exposure to the other side.
So over in our premium Slack channel, Legalize hit us up thoughts on a lineup that he has put together for a $12 single entry of Jackson, Cutelaba, Gravely, Baum, Harris, and Arroyo. I don't know how much I really want to get to the Lipsky and Mandy Baum fight.
So, I mean, I was looking at that as well, and I understand that Ariana Lipsky's, training down American Top Team, or surrounded by some good fighters. I think that Mandy Baum, can expose her on the mat if she can get her down, possibly work towards a finish. But really on the mat, Ariana Lipsky has been finished via strikes, not so much via, submission. I think that it's an interesting path for sure, but that's a fight that I'm a little underweight on, if we're being honest. I think that's a very, very contrarian lineup because he has Ahoyo and, Harris in there as well. I think that Harris is going to be a very, very popular GPP play because of his finishing ability. But I got to tell you, like, Impa Kasanganay is super, super talented, and Impa might be a guy that I don't think I have much exposure to him at all, because if he wins, I think it's just via decision. I don't think he's going to really get Harris out of there.
Yeah, that's I didn't find myself getting Impa a lot either. I know a lot of people are looking at the other side. of that matchup. Next up, Thomas says, why am I thinking with Cutelaba coming in shape with his job on the line, he may tone it down? Bet the over. I mean, look, that's, you see it. If Lipsky, she talked about it this week of she's having the mindset of, if I don't get a win here, my days in the UFC may be over. And it's natural that, but the one thing is, and Pete, you can talk about this from a fighter's aspect, you can have that coach who is trying to change your mentality of how you go in there. But I remember I had one fighter say to me, he said, we had worked all camp long about fighting calm, sticking to the game plan, being smart. Because then I got hit in the face and all went out the window.
Yeah, I mean, emotions play a lot and when you're fighting, and fighting emotional is definitely where you see a lot of fighters make mistakes, and that's where you see fighters empty their gas tank a little bit more than they should, and they don't start, they don't fight methodically. And I will say that, we have seen Sam Alvey say, my job's on the line, I need this win, I'm going to go in there and get it done. And we've seen the same Sam Alvey. So I try not to really play too much into what fighters say, because I know how it is. I tend to really rely on tape, habits, adjustments that you think that they're making with the camp switches and all that stuff. I really rely more on that than verbiage.
Next up says, asking for thoughts on Mike Rodriguez should have a speed advantage plus a massive reach advantage. Well, here's the problem is, and I like Mike. Problem is when the fight goes to the ground.
Yeah. I mean, he shouldn't have to worry too much about, Tafon and Chukwi taking him down, but I do think that a path is there. I think with Mike, buddy of ours, I think he needs to really keep him on the outside. And throughout his fights, you have seen him allow his opponents to get inside, hit him with big shots, hit him inside the clinch. And that's where Tafon and Chukwi can definitely excel. So despite all of the advantages, the physical advantages that Mike has, on tape, we really haven't seen him utilize that as much, right? And if Nchukwi has been working takedowns, he definitely has a path to victory there.
FanDuel question: Cutelaba or Gravely? I'd rather probably go the Ian Cutelaba matchup just because of the finishing probability there, but I could also see where, man, if Gravely can get, if he ends up getting 5, 6, 7 takedowns, man, it's gonna be hard for him not to be optimal.
How about this? On FanDuel, Cutelaba is going to have to stuff some of Devin Clark's takedowns, because Devin Clark is not going to stand with him for a large majority of the fight. He's going to be shooting. He's a phenomenal wrestler. So I do think on FanDuel that makes Cutelaba a much more interesting fighter, and I might pull up FanDuel right now and put Cutelaba in there. I kind of like that.
Speaking of FanDuel, we got a question from Slack about favorite cheapies for FanDuel. So let's kind of look at the fighters that are 14 and under. So you got Devin Clark, who's $12. Mm-hmm. You have got Christos Giagos, who is $8. Antonio Arroyo, who's $11. Nate Manis, $11. Brandon Jenkins, $9. JP Buys, $8. Sarah Alpar, $10. Carlson Harris, 14. Gustavo Lopez, 12. Hannah Goldie, 13. I think those the two fighters I just mentioned right there at the end. Gustavo Lopez and Hannah Goldie, I think, are two interesting cheap plays over on FanDuel.
I would agree. I think that Hannah Goldie is a fighter that I am overexposed to. If she goes out there and just gets a decision, then I'm going to be a little disappointed. If she goes out there and loses, then I'm not going to be satisfied. I'm going to be a little upset. I will say that Antonio Hoyo is interesting on FanDuel, because if Joaquin Buckley takes the safer approach and tries to take him down, you could see him stuff some takedowns. He did stuff some initial takedowns from Deron Wynn, but Deron Wynn is an accomplished wrestler, a phenomenal wrestler. And, I can't really fault him for that, but, Antonio Hoyo has some terrible takedown defense, but fighters always make adjustments, Jason.
I'm gonna do a true false spin on a question here from Derek. True false: Buckley will score more than Gravely and Sarukian.
No, it's a false.
Yeah, I would say false too, because Buckley could go out there and get a quick knockout, and let's just say it's in 2-3 minutes, but Sarukian and Gravely may rack up points with takedowns going 2 and 3 rounds.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just a little nervous for Buckley, to be honest. If you're not nervous about Buckley and you think he could still take a shot and you think that he really implements a wrestling approach, then smash Buckley, because I feel like maybe some people are a little more hesitant than I think that Joaquin Buckley is still going to get pretty high ownership, probably around 20% or so. So do with that, what you will, but I'm going to be a little underweight just in case.
Hunter mentions about Ryan Spann can be optimal. Smith not proven to have a takedown defense, and Spann
sure.
one-shot power is unreal. Yes. I mean, look, if Ryan Spann goes out there and wins at $7,100 on DraftKings, yeah, he's going to be optimal. But when you think about Anthony Smith getting stopped, okay, the Globe to Shera was a accumulation of strikes over multiple rounds. We haven't seen Anthony Smith just get dropped. I mean, but the biggest concern I have with Ryan Spann is what happens if that finish does not come in the first 10 minutes of this matchup. If this thing gets to the third round, and we talk about this all the time, live betting MMA is the way to go. I currently do not live in a state that we have legalized sports betting. That goes into effect October 15th. But if you're in a place where you can do live betting, MMA is perfect because, and to me, that's the type of fight where if it hits third round, go and see what is the odds for Anthony Smith. I do like the Anthony Smith prop bet of him to win by submission, which earlier today I saw as high as plus 330. It was plus 275 earlier this week. So, to me, that's where I think you got to look at it. But yeah, I mean, Ryan Spann's got the power. Not looking at Anthony Smith, the weigh-ins, I thought was kind of interesting.
Yeah, pulling a little John Jones looking down. I like Ryan Spann. I like his skill set. I don't like him in a 5-round fight. That's mainly why I think that I'm leaning towards Anthony Smith. But Ryan Spann has that one hitter quitter. Definitely can sit Anthony Smith down with a shot and capitalize on an overexposed neck. Anthony Smith has been submitted in the past, not really via guillotine, more on rear naked chokes and arm triangles, but it's a path. So I trust me. I like Ryan Spann a lot. I liked him in a previous fights. If he fixes that gas tank like anybody can, he's going to be extremely dangerous.
Next up says Steven's asking about Gustavo Lopez and how do you feel about him? You mentioned on Thursday, you mentioned earlier in the show, you're not an Alatang backer here.
I don't like Alatang, man. I think that, for DFS, I think that he just doesn't, in some of his wins, yeah, he gets takedowns and all that stuff, but he hasn't really scored the best. Like you need a guy to get over 85 points to really be in the realm of consideration. And I don't know. I think that Gustavo Lopez is pretty damn solid. And if you look at who he's fought legitimate competition, Adrian Yanez, Merab Dvalishvili, Anthony Burchak, like some solid guys. I think that Haley Alatang's a little overrated, and I'm okay with getting away from him and targeting his opponent.
Legalize would like to know whether we would prefer Cutelaba or Smith. I would probably go Cutelaba just because, and you mentioned this a little earlier, the concern is Anthony Smith going to bring you a score that you want for a fighter who's 9,100?
Yeah, I mean, it depends on the contest, depends on the size, depends on, what type of player you are. But I think that Cutelaba has a higher ceiling than Anthony Smith. I think Anthony Smith's a little safer of a pick because you understand that, Cutelaba's cardio is in question, and the takedown defense against a legitimate wrestler in Devin Clark is always a threat. So yeah, it's still Cutelaba for me because I'm a little more of an aggressive player.
Do want to let you know about our sponsor, Prize Picks, as they are offering daily prop-based contests, and they want to help you get started with a deposit bonus. You see it right there at the top of the screen. Just download the app in the App Store or the Google Play today and make your first deposit using the promo code Awesemo to receive an instant first match deposit of up to $100. With that instant deposit match, you'll also get a free square that you can combine with your other picks, as Patrick Mahomes over-under has been dropped to a half yard. So if he throws for at least 1 yard, then you win. So be sure to check out Prize Picks over there. Be sure to use that promo code Awesemo for an instant first match deposit of up to $100. Brand new sponsor here of the MMA Live Before Lock show. So be sure to check out Prize Picks over there. Their daily prop-based contest. So be sure to check them out over there. You can see it right there on the screen on what they have there in terms of UFC related there. So be sure to check them out over there. Of course, if you do have any questions, comments, leave those right, whether it's in a YouTube chat or our premium Slack channels. We'll get to those as we do go on, as Neil just asking Raquel Pennington or Impa.
Oh, yeah. It's got to be Raquel Pennington. I don't know. That's weird. They're kind of even for me. It's like a coin flip for me because I think that Raquel Pennington, She's fought legitimate competition. She can get takedowns and clinch control against the cage. Impa's more of a prospect, and against a guy who really has a small sample size, looked phenomenal in his debut against Christian Aguilera. But, I think that Impa's just as talented. So Impa might be a low-owned guy that you can take advantage of. I think he's going to come in like probably around under 20%, if I had to guess.
I would say as a cash play, my answer would be Pennington.
Yep.
A GPP play would be Impa.
100%. Agree.
Just because I think that, if Impa does win, it's probably going to come via stoppage, where I do see Pennington winning. If she wins, it is by decision. I mean, but Penny does have the volume there. So, she might be able to rack up some points for you as well.
Mm-hmm. Agreed.
So, of course, appreciate Neil with the question in there. Kai Roach saying 100% Alpar enough?
Hell no. I mean, you're going to have like 95% more than the entire field. So if that's how you want to play, then by all means.
Rodriguez or Harris?
Gotta go Harris, man.
I mean, look, if Mike Rod wins, I think it's by stoppage. Mike Rod's one of those guys. I wonder if his game is more beneficial to the bigger cage.
For sure. Well, for sure. I'll tell you that from my own personal experience. Like, I hate fighting in a small cage because you get backed up against the cage relatively easy. Like, I was talking with my buddy Nate, and he's like, bro, there's certain times you're offered opportunities and then you have to like dig into it. Like, okay, what's the cage size? Like, what are we dealing with? Because if you're fighting a wrestler, it's really tough. In this striker versus striker matchup, I don't really think it's going to matter. I think it's going to press the action, which can definitely negate his length and physical advantages because he's going to get crowded a little earlier than he would in a big cage.
Yeah, I mean, it's in that Apex, it is a small cage, and we always talk about that black line where literally if your heels ends up on that black line, you're essentially one step away from being back against the fence. And I could definitely see Njoku's game plan is let me get Mike up against the fence and eliminate that reach advantage that he does have in the matchup. Marco says, I haven't heard anything about Impa. Are you guys interested? It seems like Harris is getting a lot of love, and Impa is extremely low owned to be the favorite. I mean, when you're talking about getting leverage on the field, Impa is the guy to look at and try and find that leverage.
Ultimate leverage play. If you want to, look at this from just a data perspective, right? Look at odds, go to awesemo.com, check out ownership. And then if you see favorites coming in here or high favorites, or just even relatively, decent favorites going unowned, target those fighters if that's how you like approaching it from just a data perspective. And, sometimes it's easier to do that than to sit here, break down film, do all this and that, and, kind of just look at it a black and white perspective. Just have no emotional attachment to anything, and you might have some success.
Can you fade the main event on FanDuel? I say yes.
Hell yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
Safer play, Sarukian or Buckley? Sarukian for me.
Sarukian.
Yeah. I mean, look, and you've talked about this. I mean, there's concerns. I mean, how does Joaquin Buckley bounce back? I mean, I think from a promoter's aspect, I do feel like the UFC believes this is a very winnable fight for Buckley because they look at Buckley and they say, hey, this is a guy that because of what he has done with these flashy knockouts in the UFC he's a guy that people will tune in to watch. So I do feel that it's kind of a showcase fight for Joaquin Buckley, but this is MMA. I mean, anything can happen.
I'll tell you what. So I would agree that it's a stylistic matchup for Buckley because you're going to find a fighter that can stand and bang with you, which is, right up Buckley's alley, and has questionable takedown defense. The only negative thing is, does Buckley still want to be that guy standing up because of all this damage that he's taken throughout his career? Been knocked out by Kevin Holland, just getting knocked out by DeKirko. When you see a fighter get hit with a shot and it was a clean shot and it was a head kick, of course, certain fighters, to me, it looks like he's taken so much damage that his chin is somewhat gone.
Got a question or a comment about Christos Giagos from Derek saying Giagos is no bum. He has some wins over legit dudes. Here's the concern I have with Christos Giagos is we have seen that gas tank fades quickly in the third round. And look, I think he's going to try to get takedowns. I don't think he's going to try to play this fight on the feet. I think he's going to try to get the fight to the ground. But the problem is and we've seen it in this most recent run here in the UFC, is that he looks great for 10 minutes and then that gas tank fades.
Yeah, it's not a skill thing, but I do think that Sarukian, is better than him in all areas. And Sarukian can do everything that he can, but better, and has, better cardio than him. And we've seen Giagos, start to really allow fighters that are on his level back into fights. So to me, Sarukian is an inside the distance play. And that's why Giagos is a fade for me this week. He can definitely make changes with his cardio, but I don't see it happening.
Most confident play: Gravely, Smith, Kutalaba, or Impa. I would go Kutalaba.
I'd go Gravely. Manus, to me, man, I don't think he's good. I'm sorry, I don't think he's good.
You're not high on him.
No, I'm not. I don't know, but he has 2 wins in the UFC. So, that's 2 more than me. That's 2 more than everybody listening to this. So, I mean, we can't really say much, but I will tell you that it's a point where I'm like, okay, too much luck, not enough skill.
Legalize, wondering about going Zoo over Bomb.
That's a fighter we have not talked about. I'm happy that he brought him up.
Look, this is Zhu. I think the question is he did miss weight yesterday. First off, weighed at 158 and what's the 158 and a half? I want to say, as I recall.
Yeah, he missed by 3 or 4 pounds. Yeah.
I mean, look, at any time a fighter misses weight, you don't know what necessarily happened. It could have been, hey, you just got to the point where you stopped sweating. The pounds weren't just coming off anymore. Maybe there was an injury leading up to this. Who knows? Maybe when his opponent fell off, that maybe he decided to partake in some not the greatest food options.
Right.
I mean, you just never know.
Yeah. I think there's also strategy behind it too. Especially if I think it's more of him getting lazy, thinking that he was not going to have a fight and that they weren't going to find somebody. But there's also a strategy behind it where he possibly wants to bulk up and be a little stronger, have a little miscalculation with his weight cut and, all of that to possibly exploit, the takedown defense of his opponents. And I do think that if he changed some takedowns together, he can be heavy on top and it can work in his favor. There was a period of time where fighters who missed weight were like, they were on a crazy run. Remember that, Jason? That was some time ago, but, I think if he implements takedowns, it's going to help him.
Ryan says Manus or Spann. I'm guessing you're going to say Spann.
I think that Manus is still a cash play. Like, despite my lack of love for Manus, I think that he's a cash play because, like I said, could capitalize on the bad cardio of Tony Gravely. But I think that Ryan Spann is the GPP play. Absolutely, he's in the main event. He has 5 rounds to work with. If he makes changes, he could definitely become optimal.
Who is a fighter we are not talking about?
Let's see. Who are we not talking about, bro? Hold on. Let me
go.
How
about I've got the fighter. One of the most expensive fighters. We have not brought their name up. Erin Blanchfield.
She is a phenomenal Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu talent who has been really working on her craft and her striking. I think that she has a high ceiling going forward. I think that, Alpar is going to test her because Alpar is pretty physical, can push her against the cage, can negate some of her strengths. So that's why I'm a little underweight, but I still really like Blanchfield, like in the division. Like I really do. I think okay, going forward, I think that she's going to, turn into a very, very dangerous fighter and a ranked fighter. I just don't know. I think this could be a little underwhelming of a performance. The fighter we're not talking about, in my opinion, is probably Ariana Lipski. 8,200, usually at 8,000, 8,200 fighter is interesting. And I understand I'm not keen on this matchup, She has been making some changes. She's a dangerous striker. This could be a situation where she welcomes the UFC debutante in a rude way and could capitalize on a finish.
Next up, which underdog do you have the most of in your lineups today?
Underdog? Hannah Goldie for me.
You love you some Hannah Goldie today.
I mean, I do. I guess I do, right? Like, I think she's going to come in relatively low owned. And I think this is a very close fight, but she's way better in my opinion.
Let's see here. Why are people so confident that Gradway is going to take Mans to take down City? Munoz Jr. is a great wrestler and couldn't get him down.
I would say Munoz, he did get him down. He didn't get him down as much as he should have, but Munoz is more of a, I'd say, a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, fighter. He has good takedowns, but I don't think he has Tony Gravely lifetime of wrestling, takedowns.
GPP dart throw.
GPP dart throw. It's Antonio Hoyo, man. He's the dart throw for me.
Yeah. Of course, fantasy football is here, and we have 2 new YouTube channels that you need to subscribe to. If you love what we do for DFS, you're going to love what we do for season-long fantasy football and sports betting. So be sure to check out all the great content that we have over there, get you ready for week 2 of the NFL, which, of course, will be tomorrow. I get to sleep in tomorrow, Pete. I mean, it's kind of nice to have these home games at 4 o'clock in the afternoon. I get to sleep in a little bit. Sometimes I do prefer the 1 o'clock games, though.
Yeah, I love football, man. I'm so excited. I'm excited to see my Chargers tomorrow against the Cowboys.
Cowboys have lost a lot of guys. Just saying, they've lost a lot of guys.
I love the Chargers, man. I think we're going to be right up there this year. Obviously, we have some young guys, but I'm super excited to watch them.
Sarukian or Montel Jackson for DraftKings cash?
Montel Jackson because of the savings.
Yeah, it's I kind of feel like you
can't really go wrong, man.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just trying to sit there and say, okay, who's got the higher ceiling? Sarukian could rack up points if this fight goes later on, but I kind of feel like Montel Jackson might just. I'd probably go Montel Jackson too.
Yeah.
Next up, Lopez or Harris for a DraftKings GPP.
Lopez is a guy we haven't talked about a lot. Popular play is going to be Carlson Harris, and I probably agree with it.
Yeah. Let's see here. Clark or Arroyo in DraftKings?
Clark is way safer. Way safer. Definitely can win a decision.
Brandon Jenkins or Alpar?
It's got to be Brandon Jenkins, right? Like, I view those almost the same, right? They're 6K options for a reason. They're both extremely dangerous. You have Alpar going against a highly touted prospect. I think Brandon Jenkins pulling off the win is a little less shocking than Alpar pulling off the win.
I was just kind of thinking about who could be the slate breaker in terms of this card.
Who is it, Jason?
It might be Impa because of the leverage play.
Bro, I'll tell you right now, he's going to be low owned. He's going to be low owned, but throughout his career, he is he's gone the distance a lot in his fights. He's shown great skills everywhere. As long as his chin holds up, I think that he can have the answer for Carlson Harris in multiple areas of the fight. Jason, we have 300 people in here. We got more questions to get to. It's Jason's birthday. If you haven't said happy birthday to Jason, please throw in the chat and also hit that like button for us. We got a couple more minutes before lock.
And of course, after we are done here, Phil will pop in here. We'll get you for the NASCAR Live Before Lock show to get you ready for tonight's NASCAR. Also, we've got the Prize Pick NFL show later on today, plus MLB Live Before Lock. So keep it here locked into Awesemo.com. Blanchfield or Sarukian for a DraftKings GPP?
Sarukian.
Yeah. Goldie or Manis on FanDuel?
I still say Goldie. Manis will defend more takedowns, but I still say Goldie.
Andrew goes, no way Montel outscores other 9K options. Even if he KOs buys in the first round, it will equal like 105 points. Like, look, if I was going to rank the 9,000 options.
Let's hear it.
So we've got Anthony Smith at 9,100, Ian Cutelaba at 9,000, Sarukin 9,600, Buckley 9,300, and Montel at 9,600. Also Aaron Blanchfield. So I would probably go Montel 1, Sarukian 2. You also got Gravely in there too. I'd probably put Gravely 3. Then probably Blanchfield, Anthony Smith.
And then what about Cutelaba?
Oh, Cutelaba's got it. I'd probably put him right around Gravely, that 3-ish area.
I would agree. It to me, like 1A and 1B, it's Saruki and Montel Jackson. Then second, I'll say it's Cutelaba. Then it's Gravely. And then it's Anthony Smith. Joaquin Buckley is my least favorite 9,000 option, to be honest.
Top under 7K play.
Top under?
Yeah.
Oh, man, it's Antonio Hoyo. And, because we got Hoyo, Alpar, Jenkins, Buys, Yagos. Buys and Yagos, cross them off. I don't want anything to do with either one of them. It comes down to a Hoyo and Brandon Jenkins. I think most people will put Brandon Jenkins in there because he's more of a highlight guy. Just came off a beautiful knee knockout. So it's a Hoyo for me. It's Jenkins for the field.
Yeah. Look, this is, stars and scrubs is probably the philosophy you want to go with here. You're going to, there is definitely a path to have like 4 fighters who are underneath 8,000 in your lineup.
For sure.
Which is then going to allow you to get to, 2 9,000 options and whatever combination you want to put those in together. I mean, Aaron Blanchfield was someone that I was really looking at. I mean, just kind of a concern, she's a young developing fighter. I mean, look, I do think this is a showcase fight for her, but it's you look at the potential of a Gravely, you look at the potential of Ian Cutelaba. Like if they both win, I would be surprised if they don't score 100 points.
Yeah, I mean, proven commodities are always the safer, players to pick, and especially when we see it in the UFC, we don't really know how a lot of fighters are going to handle their debut. I will say that when I've made debuts before, my nerves have gotten the best of me, and a lot of fighters say UFC, octagon jitters are a real thing. So if she can manage that, possibly she can go out there and get a dominant performance. But at her price range, I'm okay with getting to other options.
So we got 14 fights. What are we setting the over-under number on Mount Finish is at?
Set it at 9.5. You're going over or under?
Under. 9.5 is a big number, bro.
Oh yeah, we lost a fight. 8.5.
8.5. Ooh.
I'm saying over. 9.
Yeah, I might go over too.
9 finishes tonight, guys.
It's a lot of finishes.
That is.
I just want to look at ownership projections here in terms of some of the fighters that you could potentially get some leverage on. And I think when you're talking about 2 higher end options, Impa and Pennington, I think are 2 that you have to look at just to get a little leverage on the field.
Yeah, they are definitely going overlooked if we're looking at ownership, like really, really overlooked.
Emily Whitmire, as much as you've talked about how much you love Hannah Goldie, she's not getting a lot of ownership either.
Yeah, she's not at all. And let's be clear, armbar from guard is definitely in play for that fight. But I will say that Emily Whitmire, in a lot of her losses, has been defeated via armbar. She throws up armbars from her back, but her submission defense is what really abandons her throughout her fights. And I think a fighter who's been working with, Jillian Robertson and other fighters of high caliber, I think Hannah Goldie can go in there and possibly get her out.
Let's leave on this one here. Says, I'm leaving $2,000 on the table on DraftKings. Is that okay? I think that's too much.
I think that might be too much, but we have seen it happen in the past. My only thing is 2,000 left on the table when there's a smaller card makes a lot more sense than 2,000 left on the table when we have a lot of fights like this. There's also, it's not like we don't have 9,000 options that stink. We have a ton of 9,000 options that are all amazing. So I'm totally fine with getting to them. And I'd probably spend up some spots. But if you think some 9,000 options kind of, crap the bed, then 2,000, do it. That's a, very, very contrarian lineup.
Of course, that is going to wrap it up for Live Before Lock. Good luck to everyone with your DFS lineups here tonight for UFC Vegas number 37. Coming up next, be myself and Phil get you ready for tonight's NASCAR slate. Pete, anything you want to mention before we get out of here?
No, man, I just want to say, thank you guys for all the support. Follow us on Twitter at Jason_Floyd, at Pete the Heat MMA. Hit us up throughout the fights. Let us know how you guys are doing. If you're in our Slack channel, definitely hit us up there. Talk to us throughout the event. I can't wait. I really, really can't wait for this fight card. And I'm hoping to make some big money tonight.
I'll mention this, Rocky. I would not stack the main event in cash. That'd be my perspective there. But that is going to do it for Live Before Lock. We will talk to you again next week for the strategy show on Thursday. And I'll be back here in a couple minutes for the NASCAR Live Before Lock show. So have a good day, everybody. And good luck to you in your MMA lineups.